Uh-oh.
Are we live?
We'll act like we're live.
Okay, we're going to act like we're live today.
Oh yeah, there you go.
We are alive today, and that's what matters because every day is a new day, no matter what happens. And it's not what happens to us, it's how we're going to deal with it. And today we were talking, I guess, about, Scott did a great, interview kind of audition with a prepared thing, how he does his talking or his speeches, and I thought it was amazing. I really did. I'm really happy with it. He doesn't know for sure what's happened with it, but just I think last week we were talking that he was going to go out and tell people how to do their business, how the things that work for your business. Do you got all the tools you need? Kind of like uh, cold leads, hot leads. What are the differences? There's just so much about business that a lot of people don't even understand. And Scott had just 5 minutes to say all this stuff. And we went over it several times, and every time he did it different because he doesn't have to have a script; it's in his brain. So that's called improving, basically knowing what you know already and saying it a different way several times. Sometimes you have to do that to get some people like me to understand. I have to hear things like 6 times differently so it sticks in my brain. And some people totally get it on the first time. So this is the guys who get it on the first time go, you already told me that. And I go to them, well, that's not how I learned. They said, well, I know on the first time, you don't need to keep on repeating it. But I'm a repeater. So if you ever heard me teach on my own, it's I just keep on repeating a different thing, thinking you don't know yet. And then finally, uh, you got to
Well, how
say,
many
shut
times do you
up.
have to say something?
Right, 6 times. But with a client, you were saying up to 18 times just them seeing you in a positive light 18 times before they decide to go with you. Who knows anymore because there's so much going on the internet. It's go bing, 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 bing. If you get on your phone, I mean, you get a dopamine hit every time you go bing, bing, you're lost. So how are we going to get those clients?
Well, there's so many people out there that are teaching so many different things. Like even I've hired coaches that teach the opposite of what I believe, or what works for my identity, right? I've hired a coach that uses scarcity sales. So basically, he'll just tell you, "Aren't you so glad you found me?" and how inadequate you are. And I hired this guy. And after like my third class, I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't go around telling people how inadequate they are and I'm your savior. That's a scarcity mindset. So if you better go with me or you don't know what's going to happen. So I like the abundance mindset personally, where I just say, here, this is basically what we are. If this works for you, great. If not, I don't, I understand not everybody will work together, or jive the same way, or maybe some people, because we talk about the different types of people there are. There's kinesthetic, there's visual, there's auditory, and sometimes things will click with different people, and that's the whole point of having an abundance mindset, that you put that signal out there, and whoever vibrates with it or connects with it, they'll attract to you. And that's basically how that works, as with the abundance mindset. And the scarcity mindset is something that I lived under for a very long time, and it didn't do well for me, or it gradually grew like a weed or a virus, and I didn't realize I had to just change basically how I looked at things or how I interact with people to get different results. So back to what Jeff was saying, I did a presentation about a week ago. I think it was last Thursday. They actually gave me the time to schedule my own time, but we had like 25 gigs that week, and I had to fit it in within a certain amount of window. And I had my assistant read the emails to me of what I was supposed to do. And I don't need to prepare a whole lot because we talk about this kind of stuff all the time. And basically, I went into a Zoom chat, and there was a presenter, and then there was the we'll say executive producer, the person who's in charge, and they had a host, and the host would go to the main screen and invite different people up, and, oh, you're next, make sure your microphone's working. And the content of what I provided was a lot about what I posted last week. And in the middle of the presentation, well, I talk about, cold, hot leads, what to do with your website. And then in the middle, I talked about hypnosis language. And that's pretty important. Now, a lot of people have different sales language patterns that they use, and they may call it whatever they want to call it. And it all boils down to forward thinking, presuppositions, embedded commands. These are all hypnosis terms, as well as like any sales term that you might hear from somebody else. And I use that as part of my presentation, like how to build rapport. Well, you could build rapport pretty easily just by asking people their name and getting yes sets and compliance sets. And if you want to learn more about that, join the website. So I did the presentation, and then what struck me as odd was that at the end of the conversation, I had a question from the presenter, and the presenter asked, "Well, how does hypnosis work in the middle of your presentation?" And I was kind of shocked with that question. I don't know if shocked or just confused. And I was like, well, I that's what I did. I used hypnosis language in the middle of the conversation. So I don't really know how to answer that question. And if I, after I got off the call, I was like, well, you could just rewind a minute and a half and see what I did. That kind of answers the question, right? So maybe I didn't understand the question, or maybe maybe they don't understand hypnosis as well as I do, or people that have taken these classes. And the only answer that I could come up with at the time was, well, you can use enhancers. And for those of you that don't know what enhancers are, is when you tag right at the end of the sentence. You want more sales, right? or or doesn't that sound good? You would use an enhancer. You would just say a positive sentence of something that the person was looking to do, and then get a yes question out of it. And I thought about that more, even over the last couple days, is that when you're saying yes to somebody, it's really hard to argue with them, right? You're in such an agreeable state that, it would make no sense to, put an insult in there, or just not think that the other person knew what they were doing, or anything like that if he kept saying yes all the time. So maybe the next time I will figure out a different way to do a presentation, because so many people don't understand hypnosis. There's a stigma with hypnosis, right, Jeff? Like some people think,
Well, we can call it somewhere. Or you could go with NLP. You're doing the same thing, kind of. We're bypassing the critical factor. Basically,
but nobody understands what that means
okay, so we're
unless you've
bypass.
taken
Okay,
those
hold it. Let me
classes.
let me go with
Like,
a little bit more at that. Okay, okay. So we have critical thinking. So our critical mind is about 10%, and the rest is our unconscious mind. So what we're trying to do is break into that unconscious mind. The critical factor is something that puts a block up and says, "Do I want this information?" Okay.
so Jeff,
So
can I
what
just
we
explain? Like before,
go
I
ahead.
want you to finish, but so what I think about when I think about the conscious mind, and then he's talking about the critical factor, right? So the conscious mind always wants to argue with you. So if you could envision the logo of the Boston Celtics, right? It's a guy doing this with his fist up, like he's ready to box, and that's what you come into when you talk to most people. They have that up, right? What are you going to get on me? How are you going to mess me over? Like, I'm not ready to accept this information. So let's say behind the guy with the fist up, there there's a whole nother world, right? So you don't need to be confrontational with the guy, the little Irish fighting guy. You don't need to be confrontation with him. You want to talk to the crew that he's representing, or that person's representing behind them. And then you don't need to talk to that person directly. So you would use metaphors and many other different things to, ease this guy and get this guy's, boxing gloves to go down. I'm sorry, Jeff. That's just
Well,
what I've been thinking about
that's a
lately.
good metaphor, basically. Yeah, you're saying there's this guy right here in front of you, ready to box you because he's right here, and you've hurt everybody's hurt him in the past, and he doesn't want to get any bad deals. All these things, he's got his dukes up. What we want to do as influencers or anything, we want to get his dukes down or his arms down to say that he's more acceptable to take our offer. So what the critical factor is basically this block. And what we do, break it down with the hypnosis or NLP, we break that block down so we can talk to them more reasonable. He was talking about yes sets, because when somebody's saying yes to you, yes to you, yes to you, they're more likely to say yes to other things. Okay. So when we do that, now we do a compliance, and we just tell them, move back, just move around, get comfortable, anything to, now we got a compliance set. So now we've opened up that window where we can talk to them reasonably instead of with this big block. And so they're more likely to understand and to go with us because we've opened up that block. And what we do there with, if we were doing hypnosis on somebody, helping with somebody, we can take their other things out of there and help them understand they don't have to do what they've done in the past, because doing the same thing over and over is just insanity. So we say, what are we going to do that's better than what we've been doing? So hypnosis can help in many, 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 many ways besides just cells. But with cells, it it's opening up, getting it softer, so you have the end to give them your pitch that they can, absorb without this big block in front of you. Is that kind of sounding like?
Yeah. The most important thing to take away is that, everybody's been hurt, right? So when people talk to you and you listen to it from a hurt perspective, then you can start to understand why the person says what they say, and that kind of thing. Yesterday, I went to go buy some appliances, and this lady was just talking and talking and talking, and I was just sitting there waiting, and she was talking. And as she walked away, I was like, okay, it's my turn to talk to the appliance sales guy. And then when I did that, she was like, "Oh, I thought you worked here. I'm so sorry." Like, and why do you think she would act that way, right? Like, okay, you had to say what you had to say, and I waited patiently, and then as you're leaving, you're apologizing to me. What do you what kind of hurt do you think this person has been through in order to feel that way or say something like that? So if you look at it from that perspective, it starts to make more sense. And then you just be like, well, you've had to say what you had to say, and I'm just going to carry on doing what I'm going to do. And then I analyze where that perspective was coming from, and it was probably a bad childhood. You could start to feel sorry, uh, that they see the world in a certain way, yet maybe it's not a growth way to see it you know so many different things to think about when you're interacting with other people, just to respect where they're coming from. And that's another important thing in sales or even hypnosis or hypnotherapy, that it's the same thing. It's like pace lead. You meet someone where they're at, you say some realized sentences, things that you can't argue with. Well, I see you're standing there. No, nobody can argue with that because you are standing there, and that's a pacing statement. And then, of course, that's agreeable because you're saying what's true, and then you can start to lead them to a win-win situation. And that's basically, how the art of persuasion works, or the art of the deal, or just having win-win situations. And even at the end of the day, if you can't come to the same terms, or maybe it doesn't work out, that's fine too. So just something to keep in mind when talking with other people, even if someone's mad at you for whatever reason. It just comes from a hurt perspective.
Here's
As
an
long as
exercise
as
for the
long as you did your best and you didn't do anything with intent to do something to somebody else.
right. There's an exercise you can do with yourself and other people if you want to give you more insight on this. It's called just like me. So when you look at somebody, you look at him and say, he's a human just like me. He's got feelings just like me. He has troubles just like me. And once you go through this whole list, everybody on the other side has similar things, and none of them are exactly. Nobody's exactly like. They can't taste, they can't hear, they can't smell, they can't do anything that you can do because everybody's an individual. But at baseline, we're all the same. Like we all have emotions. We all, don't want to be hurt. And more than likely, if we're talking to somebody normal, more than nobody's normal either. So it really doesn't matter. But you say just like me, and you do this exercise with everybody, and after a while you'll start understanding that you can have more. empathy with the person in front of you. And then when you have empathy in your heart, you can communicate a little better. This is a little off. This is just an exercise you can do to get more awareness. Sorry, I brought that in. We were actually talking about, you
Not
know,
as sorry as you're gonna be.
yeah, and that's it. And why would this? Why would I say sorry? Because people say sorry one because they could have low self-esteem and they think we don't want to be blamed or whatever, or it just be they really are sorry. It's like because I have a tendency, so I have a tendency because I'm ADHD to veer here, veer there, and my brain just goes everywhere all the time. It really works for me as an entertainer. It doesn't always work for other people. So if you can understand, sometimes you're annoying to other people. And I don't think all ADHD, people are trying to, you know, be mean or anything to anyone else. They're just trying to navigate through their own life and their brain. So it's kind of one of the problems. But we also have hyper focus, and I'm not going out. This is not, oh, we are so great. So I'm going to go off the ADHD, just being people, you know, just understand the person in front of you. And then and then if we bypass the critical factor, which we were talking about, you might want to look it up, or bypassing this block that most people have up because they've been hurt or other reasons. We're not saying everybody in the world has been hurt, but we're saying everybody in the world has experienced something that they don't want to happen to them, that they've seen somebody else get hurt and they don't want to get hurt, somebody lost something or got a bad deal, but everybody in general moves away from pain and towards pleasure with every decision they make in life. And what we want to do is break that wall that's up and soften it so we can talk to them reasonably and then give them our sales pitch. And when and another thing in his is, I don't want, well, I'm going to give it away. He gave it away to me. The best thing right there. Are you ready for my pitch? He says, this is one of the biggest things I've heard from Scott for a long, long, long time. Is so good for hypnotic language. When you ask somebody, are you ready for my sales pitch? And they say yes, just think about this. They've agreed to accept what he's going to talk about. They don't have to go with it, but they agreed to listen to what he's saying. Now, that's the one of the biggest part in sales is when they start listening instead of got you blocked here and they're not even listening to or seeing you, and you say, this is why our product's this great and we're done this and we've got 200,000 letters of recommendation or whatever. And then you get him and you say, this is, and Scott teaches too. So he teaches what they should know because he's done it so much. It's just old hat to him. And a lot of people don't know when you book any entertainer for anything, they probably haven't booked 1,000 of us. So we have to explain why we're going to be good for them. And what do you have that you're going to give them that somebody else isn't? Go ahead, Scott.
So, when you brought that up, I thought about my last two sales calls, which I booked them both on the spot. And I don't even do that kind of pressure sales. They just were so sold that they booked on the spot. And I went through the spiel and, well, of course, asked the first guy. He works for SpaceX and he works for Blue Origin. For those of you who don't know, those are places that send up rocket ships. And so when I was talking to him, he was very attentive, and I heard a lot of clicking on the typeboard, so I guess he was taking notes or something like that with his keyboard. And when I was talking to him, I went through the whole spiel, and at the end of it, he said, "What questions should I be asking?" And and this is a great response. Hold on to this. I said, "Well, I'm not surprised that you don't have any questions because I've done this sales pitch so much that I've worked all the questions into the sales pitch, and that's probably why you don't have any questions." And he was floored with that answer, and he booked then. Day number two, I talked to another sales guy. The only reason that I found that out was because I was like, are you ready for my spiel?" And he said, "Well, I'm a sales guy. I love being sold to." Did the spiel, and he booked on the spot. Yeah, they all have questions at the end. Well, not all, but some kind of questions. And basically, the questions that I want at the end are, well, what happens next? Basically, I'm going to send you a contract and it's going to run through the automation. Those are the questions because I don't talk about price till the end, and I don't even bring up price until they ask. so so that's another compliance step or well, what is the next step, right? So I didn't even bring that there, but they came up with that on their own, and then another reason why they closed. The second the second guy, the sales guy, right? He's well, I know a few things about sales, and I was like, well, he told me that he sat down with somebody that was extremely expensive, and then he sat down with somebody who was on the lower end, and I said, great. I bet I'll be in the middle. Don't most sales guys go with the guy in the middle? He goes, yes. And I was in the middle and he booked on the spot. So, and that's as again, there's different types of ways to do sales. And the sales guy said that the really expensive guy was a great salesman. He's like, he is amazing. I don't know who it is. Didn't tell me, I don't care. And he just said he was really expensive and a great sales guy. And well, we could think about this for a second too. Somebody who is out there charging a lot of money for their services probably doesn't have, you know, overhead or doesn't have many employees to keep busy. So I like to stay in the middle so that I could keep my team around me, and I can't grow without a team. So and it all pretty much hinges on money coming in. So if you can become a sales guy and get the money to come in, then you at least have the money to go find other people. But if you don't know how to do that part, well, then you're just kind of dead in the water. It all
Well,
depends on what you're um well, not dead in the water, but like you'll be at the mercy of somebody who can make the sales kind of thing.
the guy at the top sometimes, not I'm not going to say always or anything like that, but sometimes the guy at the top who's charging a lot more has only got one thing, him. He's
Hmm.
charging more because he's a scarcity. If there's only one of you and there's thousands of other things, but you have the only exclusive you can sell yourself for more because you're not selling mass production. You can't say, I have 25 DJs and we'll cover all these events. If you want our best guy, it's going to be this, though. And that's that top tier. And if you even think about it, there's always a top tier of almost everything in the world. They say the 20% of the top 20% of any industry, anything can make a living. Now, the top 2 or 3% are making the most. It's really that where it's at. So, just understand, just like you might go Walmart, Target, and Macy's. And then you say these are different tiers and they cost different amounts. And some of and there's different kind of people. They wouldn't even walk into Walmart because they're too good for that you know, and there's probably some things in Macy's that have higher quality, and but the price. So where do you want to be? And I think I'm totally with
Well,
Scott in the belief that the middleman usually gets the thing because what we need most of the time is somebody who's good and they can do what we need, and we don't need to be the best. But if we do need to be the best, we'll probably go with the most expensive if we're rich. Go ahead.
well, that depends on your avatar, right? Like for
Yeah.
those of you that know what an avatar is, there's people that want a lower budget, there's people that want a middle budget, and there's people that want a higher budget.
Okay.
And then that also goes back to the four types of ways that a person buys, right? A person will either buy on prestige, security, kinesthetic, or money, right? So if somebody is into prestige, they'll probably want the best, the most expensive. And then the best way to dig at a person who's at prestige, tell them that they wouldn't want that one. Yeah, you wouldn't want that. It's too expensive for you. So if somebody is prestige driven, that'll drive them up a wall. Don't tell me what I can't buy. Somebody who's a money person probably, depends on what they want for quality, would most likely get the lower end. And then what was the other one? Kinesthetic. It has to feel right for them. And what was it? Money, kinesthetic? Oh, security. Whatever. And then the other one, not so worried about money, but what's going to be the best, who has the backup plan? Is this thing going to happen no matter what?
Safety,
Yeah.
security. In the spread, another way to get the guy who's prestige is basically say, this is your reputation, is don't you? Don't you?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is, and then this is your reputation. isn't it? You can put the tag, but you called it something different. I call it tags. When you do something and say, "Isn't that right?" Uh, right? Wouldn't you say that would be true? You know, you put the tag on the end. Uh, so all these things. See, if people would just listen to our little talks, they could get so much out of it because we veered around like 10 different things you can actually do. I mean, and I just brought in some other things for helping yourself just to be a better person is the person in front of you just like me and keep on doing that till you understand when you go into a situation, even if, and I also liked what you said that probably was just ran over. It was like you said, without even putting the emphasis on it, it's a win-win situation. So in business, you want to have win-win situations. If you do all you win and nobody else wins, after a while, it will catch up to you. You can do that for a while. Or you can actually do it for a long time if you change, you do it in one section and you do it in another section and you just keep moving. And that's what some people do. They say, you don't change your show, you change your audience. But for me, I've been here for 40 years doing what I do, and I didn't change. I changed pretty much. Didn't change much. I just was me, and I got people, but I didn't change my audience. So, like if you're a comedian and you travel all over the world, but I haven't had to travel anywhere except Dallas Fort Worth for 40 years. So you don't always have to change that. Just become the best top 20% of whatever you're doing. So if you're a DJ, just get in the top 20%. And you don't have to be the best, but definitely don't be the worst. If you're the worst, come and watch these videos and become a little bit better. And you can't be a C. You got to be a B or above. Just understand most in life, if you want to make money and have a better life, B or above, B or above. You can be whatever you want. Yet, if you're a C, come on, guys. Look into yourself and say, I can be a B. Damn it. I just don't understand C's.
Well,
I don't.
that's a whole nother conversation of confidence versus competence.
But and most people, no, I was wrong because the Dunning-Kruger effect, because some people don't realize where they're at. And even smart people sometimes don't really, realize how smart they are. And so we get both of those in the Dunning-Kruger effect is basically smart people don't think they're as smart as they are, and then dumb people don't think they're dumb as they are. So we got to just look at that. So
I mean, if you want the full breakdown on NLP of how
yeah,
to understand that better, it's confidence versus competence.
yeah. Uh, anyway, that uh, we veered off from. Well, it was not a veer off. Basically, you
Yeah,
went
so
with
recap,
the
right?
top. Yeah, the recap.
I went and did an audition last week. Think it was Thursday. I had 5 minutes to present material. I was asked a question about hypnosis because I don't think many people know a lot about hypnosis. And sometimes people be best to know, but sometimes people can't ask the right question because they don't have enough foundation to ask a better question. And even with my knowledge, guiding people to a better question sometimes becomes a challenge because there's many other building blocks behind that that I don't understand or have the time to really break down, without, a session, right? Like, what do you think about hypnosis? Like, what do you know about it? Like, uh, would you like it broken down better? You know, and you're dealing with the conscious and subconscious mind. Basically, the fighting Irish guy is there, and then there's a wall behind him, and you want to talk to the people behind the wall. There's a guard up. You know? You gotta get past the guard, or not talk to the guard at all. You want to talk to this is the injured guy. Like, you're not gonna injure me again. I'm like, okay. Be like, I'm not here to fight. Like, I'm here to have a conversation. Can we have a conversation? Yeah, I think we can have a conversation. Okay. Does more sales sound good to you? Yeah, more sales sounds good to me. Okay. Can I show you how it's done? Yeah, I think I'd like that. And and then the guard goes down. Like if they say no, no, you can't show me anything. Okay, well, I'm gonna go somewhere else. Like, and that could be scarcity. It'd be like the takeaway, right? Oh, come back. Or I see what you tried to do. You didn't break the barrier. I'm gonna need a little bit more information on you, and then maybe I'll come back around. And that's how my sales works.
And we could put that word right there. We could say rapport. Sometimes we'll, there's many ways to break down that barrier and
Yeah,
rapport.
there's no one size fits all either.
Yeah, so
There's
there's
no
so
one
many.
single potion you take and then poof.
Repetition will help you. It doesn't make practice, doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. Okay,
You know how
so
you get perfection? By taking imperfect actions.
exactly. Actually, what I would argue there's nobody in the world or anything except a higher being would be perfect. Okay. So with that said, go do your best every single day and you'll be a happier person because I'm a happiness coach. That's what so basically if you do your best every day, then you don't have to live from any type of regret because most people regret the things they didn't do, not the things they did do because you learn from them. And that's just another if I'm telling you, if you just go listen to Scott for 1 year of all of the things we put up about
Oh,
50 to 52 a year.
one of my favorite NLPers came out with a new book,
Which one?
Mateo.
Oh, wow. He came up with a book. There you go. And this is a young guy. This is a young guy with a lot of brains. So
Yeah.
good
Mateo
stuff.
is amazing. And if you're having any problems with conversations or the art of the deal, or if you want to go 20 levels deep on how a conversation works, it's right here. I got his other book. I turned it into an audiobook. Hit me up later and I'll send you a link. His first book was pretty good.
You did an audio book on it?
On his first book, I emailed him this morning to see if I could make this one an audiobook. He has to send me the digital file.
Yeah. Well, you should send that to me. I would like to listen to Mateo some more.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you should probably buy it.
Yeah.
And
Looks
if you're questions about what his materials like, you can follow him on YouTube. Mateo, Mind Titans, Money Momentum, I think his new YouTube is. But he breaks down language patterns in a way that's useful for me. And I personally don't think a lot of people understand how many levels there are to regular surface level conversation. Like I don't think people understand that.
most people don't.
And you will understand that by listening to him. You'll understand that a lot more. So I think that's pretty much it for today.
Okie doke. Well, it's a mouthful there. It's a lot of
Uh,
thought there. It went along a lot of different ways today, but if they would just go down any of those rabbit holes we did, they would find a lot of information.
yeah, just remember, guys, the stuff that we talk about, like we've spent, I don't know, countless hours into each category. And
Hundreds and thousands.
yeah, why it works, and
So
well, if this is true, what does this mean? Or how do you break this down? And if they're saying this conversation, what are five different ways this could go? And then how do I, control it or guide it, right? Think about it like you're on a ship and the goal is to get, North Star, but you're getting these waves, right? And then you just got to do some counter adjustment. And the more you know about language patterns and the more you understand where people are coming from, the easier it'll be. I make a lot of quick decisions and they have to be quick because of how the business operates. And I couldn't do it if I didn't understand what I understand. And I have classes if you would like to know more.
I'd almost go into what is learning, but because what you have right now is unconscious competence. And that's what everybody really wants. And what that is just like when you're driving, you don't have to think about it. But when you started driving, you had to think, should I push the gas or the brake? Gas or brake? But after a while, you don't
Oh,
even think about gas or brake. And then how far do I turn this way? And at first you probably had both hands on the wheel until you got secure, and now you probably just drive with one hand.
so
But
to give you
unconscious
an example, when I was learning about the four different personality types, I was explaining it to one of my DJs. I was like, well, this person's this because of X, Y, and Z. This person's this because of X, Y, and Z. And then I would just explain it, right? We have drinks every Thursday or whatever. And after I was done explaining it, every time we sit down with somebody new, he wants to tell me which one of the four they are. Oh, what'd you pick up? What'd you pick up? I don't even think about it anymore. Like I just go with it. But to him, it's new information, and he's excited that he was able to figure it out. To me, it's that was last year's news, you know. Like,
but
so
that's
that
what
I have
we're wanting.
unconscious confidence, and he's building his unconscious confidence because it'll be nothing to him 6 months from now anyway.
Right.
But I think he was more amazed that what I was saying had weight to it. Like, oh, this is just hogwash. No, wait. Well, you said this and this happened. You said this and this happened. There's patterns. You can see them, hear them, feel them.
You just have to look for them.
Yeah, but if you're not aware of them,
Right. See, you have, okay, the beginning, let's just go with the beginning of learning. You don't know what you don't know till you know you don't know. And then when you find out you don't know, then you can decide if you want to learn. And when you decide to learn, then you have conscious uncompetence. And you keep on working on it till you have conscious competence. And then after a while, you do that enough, then you'll have unconscious competence. Just like in a car, most people after a few years, they don't even think, or probably even less than that when they're driving. But when they're first driving, they're aware of everything. Oh my gosh, should I look back, forward, everything? It's just so overwhelming because they haven't done all the steps to get comfortable with everything. But first, the big thing is, should I push on the gas or the brake? And a lot of people at first do both at the same time. They're so afraid they won't be able to do it. They have one on the foot on a gas and a brake. When you push those together, you slide around in a circle and kill yourself. So, but after a while, they said they learn just to use the right foot. They're dominant to push both, and now you're never on that. And but if you have a standard, you have to always push in the clutch first, to shift gears. So or the whatever the pedal on the left.
so when you understand the patterns, you
Right.
can start to place dots. And you're like, where do these dots point to? And then it just becomes easier because you understand or can pre-predict a handful of things that could happen because you know what you know about the person and how they talk, and then you understand it on 20 different levels. And you're like, well, what do we do from here? And then you'll be able to predict it better based on knowing what the patterns are. Anyway,
Anyway,
that's all I got for today. All right, Jeff. We'll catch you on the next one.